Here we are making this press conference for major group and stockholders to give them statements and to share with media and press what they are doing and how they are making it. And we will start our first panelist today is the co-chair of the major group, my colleague Dalia Marquez. Dalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here in this press conference. I would like to start sharing with you a few reflections as co-chair of the Major Group Facilitating Committee. Lately, we have been seeing how the civic space is being shrinking. Since the last UNEA, we have been facing several challenges to have the opportunity for a fully engagement in the different negotiations. And now during the UNEA, this is not the exception. We still face challenges. By example, it is a tradition that during the plenary for the opening of the UNEA, each major group have the opportunity to take the floor to deliver a statement on behalf of the major group that they are representing, that at the same time represent hundreds of organizations and thousands of persons from around the globe, from all the regions in the world. But this time, just the day before, we received the info about the need to have one joint statement as the 9 major groups. That is impossible because it is difficult to have one statement per major group considering the different challenges that each region is facing from around the globe. So can you imagine to try to put 9 major groups in only one joint statement in 5 minutes? In that sense, we try to do all we can, that is just talk with the different members of the Bureau. And finally, the day of the plenary, that means yesterday, we received kind of good news. Each major group have the opportunity to take the floor, but only for 2 minutes. So during the plenary, we used to have the possibility to speak like 27 minutes, the major groups, and now we only had 19. That means that the participation is being difficult, yes. And to us, it's important to highlight that the major groups and stakeholders needs to be here. We have expertise, we have experts, and we are the ones facing the worst consequences of the environmental crisis from around the globe. Saying that, I want to invite all the member states to keep pushing for the involvement and engagement, meaningful participation and engagement of the 9 major groups and stakeholders, as well the different regional facilitators in all the environment decision-making spaces. And as women's major group, I would like to highlight that we have been witnesses how the word gender equality and gender balance are not mentioned in any of the draft resolution of the UNEA7. That means that we are being deleted from the full draft resolution. And of course, the environmental crisis have an impact, a differentiated impact in women's. And we are disproportionately affected. Therefore, I recall member states to include and use the language agreed by them in the SDGs, specifically the SDG 5, about gender equality and empowerment of all the women and girls. And now we have a girl here, we have a kid, Marianne, who has 9 years old, and she wants to share something with us. Marianne, would you like to take the floor, please? Please come. Because we are here pushing for ensure a future for her. So she has the right, of course, to speak. Marianne.
Hi, my name is Mariam. I am 9 years old and I come from Egypt. I have been walking around this big place. I see many people in suits. I see you wearing headphones. I see you reading very, very long papers. But I am confused. My teacher says you are all here to decide what happens to the earth. That means You are deciding what happens to me, but nobody asked me what I think. In my school, if we make a huge mess in the classroom, we are not allowed to go home until we clean it up. But it feels like the grown-ups made a big mess of the planet. And you are just waiting for us to grow up so we can have to clean it? That is not fair. I don't want to clean up a mess I didn't make. Please put down your big papers for 1 minute. Don't just talk about us. Talk to us. We are small, but we have loud voices, and we have good ideas too. Please let us help you fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam.
I'm very thankful for Mariam, and I will take from her speech, don't talk about us, talk to us. And I see from Dalia as talking the struggling of civil society to have speech in the opening, it succeeds at the end to have, even if it's 2 minutes, but our voices are heard. So from the children and major group, we now are hearing the voice of science. Floor to Muhammad Raouf.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's very difficult to speak after a kid, you know. But I will do my best. I have a very important points to raise very quickly, and also I can share with other members of media and major groups my statement after my presentation. So my name is Mohammed Abdel Raouf, and I speak on behalf of Science and Technology Major Group at UNEP, at UNEA7. First of all, we welcome the resolutions before us in this assembly, and we call for the greater ambitious and integrated ecosystem approaches that reflect the scale and urgency of interconnectedness between the triple planetary crisis and the expectations that UNEP continues to act as a science-based organization. Strong independent science is the foundational for effective global environmental governance. Upholding and protecting science across environmental negotiations, including those under UNEA, scientific evidence is increasingly under strain. At times, it's diluted, delayed, or overshadowed by competing economic or political pressures. When this occurs, our collective response to climate change, biodiversity loss, chemical waste, and pollution is weakened. For this reason, we call for a stronger systematic integration of scientific expertise across all UNEP processes and for measures that preserve the independence and integrity of scientific assessment. Evidence shows that when civic space contracts, environmental outcome deteriorates, transparency diminishes, accountability weakens, and crucial scientific and community-based insights are lost. For UNEA resolutions to succeed in practice, those implementing and monitoring must be able to operate freely, safely, and independently. These values are strongly echoed in a recently issued civil society statement titled Rebuilding Trust, Restoring Ambitious Civil Society Expectations for Next INC Chair, endorsed by more than 160 organizations worldwide. The statement calls for meaningful participation of civil society, right holders, and independent scientists, transparency, predictability, and integrity in the working methods of the INC process, and crucially, safeguards to protect the process from interference by actors with vested interests. As a custodian of this and similar processes, UNEP must uphold a strictly facilitative, neutral role, refraining from actions that could inadvertently shape political outcomes or compromise trust. These are measured, constructive expectations, and they reflect a global consensus that science, not lobbying or narrow interests, must guide the pathway to an ambitious plastic treaty. We echo these expectations here at UNEA7, ensuring that scientific evidence is neither sidelined nor overshadowed by undue influence, is essential not only for the plastic treaty, but also for all UNEP-led processes. A neutral secretariat grounded on evidence-based practice is indispensable for maintaining the creditability of the UN's environmental governance architecture. A resilient planet requires a resilient societies. A resilient societies require transparency, trust, and science. We, as a science major group, scientists, stand ready to work with all member states and partners to advance the solutions grounded in evidence, cooperation, and our shared responsibility to safeguard the environment for future generations. Thank you so much.
Thanks to Mohammed, and science tell us our planet are super sick, from the area of climate change to plastic to a lot of crises around the world related to our future and generation. After Mohammed, I'd like to hear from our colleague from the trade unions how it is going here in UNEA. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm Bert de Wel, the focal point for the Workers and Trade Unions constituency. I'm policy coordinator at the International Trade Union Confederation, the body that represents all the trade unions globally. We have 330 members in more than 160 countries. Altogether, the membership of our members is 200 million workers. And these workers are obviously affected by environmental impacts, by climate change impacts, and that's why we are here. And we are also witnessing this shrinking space for civil society participation, the amount of minutes that we have to speak, the possibilities to intervene. And according to us, this is very reflective of the crisis we see at this moment in multilateralism. Multilateral solutions to global problems are under pressure. Governments do not seem to get to agreements to deal with these issues. And the shrinking space of civil society organizations is one of the victims in this. Not wanting to deal with science is another one. Having these battles about the word gender in other issues, while it's also obvious, is another example. That's why from the workers' organizations we are so much attached to the system of major groups. Every civil society group has one representative and is equally represented in the negotiations and needs its voice to be heard. We don't support systems where you can pay your access to the negotiations. We don't want corporate capture of the negotiations. Every group, the farmers 1 minute, the trade unions 1 minute, and you have the place, the opportunity to make your voice heard. That's why we are very big supporters of the major group system here, and why we are very worried about the shrinking space that we get. Finally, I want to say that we are not demanding to have a place at the table because it's fun to be at the table. Because it's nice to have your word and to have a suit, and as the girl was saying, and be interesting in the negotiations. We think that we actually contribute to the solutions. We all know that without social equity, if environmental policies are not fair or negative for certain groups, then we cannot make any progress, then there will not be support in society. Actually, that's where the trade unions can be the big contribution to environmental policies, because we have the tools to implement social just policies. Wages are being negotiated, reflecting the impact that environmental policies have on their situations. See that they have protective gear against heat impacts. See that they are protected against chemicals. So we know how to negotiate this. We know how to bring sustainable social justice in these environmental policies. And that's what's completely missing here. The word jobs, labor, rights are all being taken out, and that's why we think that they're missing an opportunity here to really make progress dealing on a multilateral way with the environmental and climate challenges that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'll first clap for you. And I will take from his speech that we are not looking for just a chair on the table. We are looking for a resolution to have it and to be implemented on the ground for the future generation. And from future generation, I now give the floor to Jana, the representative of a major group of youth and the children. Jana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Janna Rodi. I am a part of the Children and Youth Major Group and part of the Global Steering Committee. And we have Clive Donnelly in the room as well, the Major Group Coordinator. And wanted to first thank Mariam for her statement to really have a perspective of a really young person, one of the youngest at UNEA. Please allow me to read our statement on the outcomes, actually, of the work that we've been doing ahead of UNEA and really leading up to the Youth Environment Assembly, which has taken a lot of our hours and time away from work to really bring this Environment Assembly to life, and especially the outcomes of the Youth Environment Assembly. So this year's Youth Environment Assembly convened at a moment of significant global challenge. As environmental crises deepen from pollution and toxic chemical exposure to plastic waste, climate impact, and biodiversity degradation, trust in multilateral mechanisms is being tested. Yet the Assembly affirmed a clear and urgent message. Youth remain committed. We are raising our expectations, and this is something that we are bringing here at UNEA as well. At its heart, the Youth Environment Assembly delivered the Global Youth Declaration on the Environment, embodying the voices and aspirations of thousands of youth and grassroots organizations worldwide. The declaration is rooted in science, rights-based urgency, and intergenerational responsibility. It calls for environmental governance to evolve to become more coherent, more accountable, and genuinely inclusive of youth, frontline communities, and marginalized voices. Through plenary debates, technical sessions, regional dialogues, and exchanges, we put forward a unified calls for action across 5 different priority areas, which I would love to share with you today. Firstly, one of our calls is for member states and for UNEP to strengthen the environmental governance architecture. There is a proliferation of multilateral environmental agreements, and while it's necessary, it has contributed to institutional fragmentation that undermines effective implementation. We urge improved coordination, enhanced synergistic planning, and clearer pathways for scientific input to inform UNEA decision-making. Second, youth reaffirm the universal human right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, especially for children and future generations. We call on governments to embed this right into national legislation, environmental justice mechanisms, and transparent reporting systems, ensuring that communities who carry the heaviest burden of pollution and chemical hazards are protected and heard. Third, we urge a decisive shift in the global economic and financial system. While it's a bold ask, we ask it. Youth emphasize the urgency of scaling up concessional finance, reforming the mandates of international financial institutions, and phasing out harmful subsidies that obstruct climate, biodiversity, and pollution ambitions. This financial alignment is critical to deliver on sound chemicals and waste management, as well as circular economy commitments. Fourth, the Assembly reaffirmed the need to confront pollution in all its forms, chemicals, plastics, electronic, industrial, with full life cycle approaches. We call for an ambitious, binding global plastics treaty, consistent with the life cycle framework outlined in chemicals governance, strengthened chemicals and waste management instruments, and robust protections for informal workers, waste pickers, and communities as at risk with accessible financing. Fifth, and lastly, youth demand accelerated protection, restoration, and resilience of ecosystems and biodiversity. We call for national commitments to integrate ecosystem-based restoration, pollution prevention, and intergenerational equity within NDCs, national biodiversity strategies, and sustainable development plans. Crucially, the Assembly made clear that meaningful youth engagement must be at the foundation of environmental governance and not an afterthought. This requires predictable resourcing, accessible processes, and formal opportunities to influence agenda setting, negotiation, implementation, and monitoring of multilateral agreements. We call on secretariats, member states, and UNEP to institutionalize youth representation across all levels. As the global community approaches and is witnessing the end of UNEA7, the message from youth is unequivocal. We want to be partners in reimagining what environmental governance should look like and not on the sidelines. The solutions exist, and what is needed now is political courage, renewed multilateral commitment, and a long-term vision that respects the rights of people and the planet alike. Thank you.
Thanks to Jana for the statement of youth and children. And it's very important to everyone to have these 5 priorities on the table to support youth to have a good work. And now I give the floor to Jerisa from the Indigenous People, and the floor is yours.
Atamaria, good morning, everyone. My name's Jerisa Lee. I am here supporting the work of the Indigenous Peoples Major Group. I'm Indigenous to Pacific Nations, including Aotearoa, the so-called Cook Islands, Tahiti and Samoa. We're here, the IPMG is here ultimately with the mandate to protect the rights of Indigenous peoples all across the world. I guess the first issue that I'd like to point out is conflating us with any other undefined groups diminishes that mandate and dilutes the work that the potential that we have here. And I'd just also like to say that our presence here isn't ideological, it isn't a nice to have. We're not here because it's so pretty to have people sing and dance and open up plenary and then dismiss them back outside the gates. The number of times that I've been approached in the past 10 days to have a photo because I have something unusual, unfamiliar to people on my face. The number of times I've been asked if I can do them a haka while they video record me and say something. How do you say good morning? By many delegates here, including member state delegates, who then turn around and sit in these rooms and completely ignore everything that would protect my right to sing and dance and represent myself in the way that I'm supposed to is actually disgusting. It's not ideological. It's Indigenous peoples have lived with the environment and as part of the environment for millennia. And in the past few hundred years, we've seen a different way of living, a non-Indigenous way of living that has seen the world differently, seen it as a resource to take from and not as a treasure that needs to be cared for, not as something that we as human beings need to have a reciprocal relationship in order for it to be healthy so that we can be healthy, for it to thrive so that we can thrive. And so, we've experienced this dominant culture of colonialism and capitalism, which has led to environmental degradation, the climate crisis that we're in right now, the biodiversity crisis that we're in right now, and other global environmental challenges like runaway plastic pollution. I did quickly write something I'd like to read to you all, as long as I can get into my phone. Because we came to UNEA, we've come to UNEA with hope, because this place is the opportunity to make decisions that can protect our planet and support communities for many generations to come. Indigenous peoples, we bring experience, we bring our knowledge systems, and we bring solutions and other ways of seeing the world and regarding the world and caring for it that can strengthen the work that is set forth here at UNEA. When our rights are respected and our voices are included, UNEA can deliver outcomes that can truly help people, all people, and the environment and the planet. But this week has shown some real problems. In several negotiations, Indigenous peoples have been pushed aside and even removed from the text completely, and this is not a small issue. It's a political choice, and it risks weakening the very decisions UNEA is trying to make. It risks the integrity of this space. Some governments are politicising Indigenous rights, and in doing so, they're politicising everyone's universal right to a clean and healthy environment. When Indigenous peoples are left out, the decisions made here become less fair, less informed, and less effective. We limit the potential here. Another challenge, as I mentioned, is the ongoing conflation of Indigenous peoples with local communities. These are not the same. Indigenous peoples have distinct rights under international law. When these rights are blurred or diluted, we lose the ability to participate properly, and UNEA loses the chance to benefit from our knowledge and our leadership. But what we need is simple. Keep Indigenous peoples in the text, uphold our rights, and ensure we can participate meaningfully in every process that affects our lands, waters, and knowledge systems. This is the bottom line for us. Our rights are not optional, and we don't leave anyone behind. If member states choose to do this, if they choose to respect Indigenous rights and include us fully, UNEA will be stronger. Decisions will be more grounded, more complete, better informed and more capable of protecting people and the planet. Indigenous peoples come with solutions, experience and a deep responsibility, a birthrighted responsibility to care for the environment. The opportunity is still here, but governments must act now. No decisions about us without us. What we've experienced last week, having our rights and our potential to be in text and resolutions relegated to informals that usually we wouldn't even be in the room to discuss. And what I experienced last week is that we were reluctantly allowed in the room, but we were just watching. We were just watching people talk about us. We were watching people talk about us, our rights, and how our knowledge systems would be included in the resolutions. And that's not okay. That is not okay. Member states here really lack ambition, or perhaps it's something else. And I'll let you all decide what you think is happening in those rooms, whether they lack ambition or whether they've got something else on their agenda. And I think I'd just like to reiterate that not about us without us, and finally end with something that we say back home, and that is what's good for Māori is good for everybody. And I would bring that same idea here, that what's good for Indigenous peoples is good for everybody. We see things as a collective, and we don't leave anybody behind. And we see our communities and our peoples as what is the thing that will lift everyone up. And so I ask you all, if you are not Indigenous, or perhaps you don't have this insight into an Indigenous worldview, that you see that we've come here specifically to fight for our rights, but understanding that we see it as for all people, for the entire planet, and for many generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I will talk from your speech. You came here with hope, and we are, as Indigenous in the room, hearing the people are talking about you, especially like what happened in COP30. It is COP of the Indigenous, but the Indigenous weren't much represented inside the COP. So thank you very much for your speech, and now I will give floor to local authorities. Camilla, in 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning. I am Camelia Kimileva from the Global Cities Hub as part of the constituency of the local authorities major groups, which is co-facilitated by ICLEI, and my colleague Magash Naidu is here. He will reply to questions, if any, after. And also by UCLG with Carlos Mascarel Villar. So they are the co-facilitators. I'm just the speaker for today. Thank you for giving me the floor. Because we deliver many speeches in the room and we have our statements, we decided together just to tackle 3 particular issues. So one thing is this very complicated word that we use, the multilateral, multi-level diplomacy. So why we speak about this multi-level diplomacy all the time is very simple. The UNEA is an intergovernmental body, and as United Nations stand, that means central governments are in the leading chairs from already after the Second World War. This is how the multilateral diplomacy is. Observers can participate, make statements, and take the advantage to thank our contact groups and our co-facilitators, as we said, to always strive that we have the voice. But the local and regional governments, they are part of this whole of government structure in each and every country. So they are technically speaking, part of the government. So it's a little bit bizarre to say, okay, if they're part of the government, that means that they're part of the multilateralism. It is true in many countries where some states include better and work better with their local and regional governments. Others also work probably in a less effective way. What we want is to bring the voices of the whole of government at this multilateral level to better integrate the local and regional governments, because they are owners of solutions. Sometimes they're closer to their residents, because they hold innovation, and because we believe it's a win-win practice for the central government and for all the level of the governments in one country to better cooperate together. So the whole story that we work is about integrating local and regional governments more in the international discourse, bringing their solutions and working better, if this is possible, with their own governments. Two quick examples. Yesterday we had an event where a Kenyan principal secretary of the State Department of Public Works was staying there talking to other people, but also to the deputy governor of Nairobi, who was also in the room. And for us, this is very precious, this contact here at the UNEA among all levels of governments. Same thing with the Brazilian diplomat explaining how Brazil will continue to integrate this policy of beat the heat of the COP30 on local and regional level, with a Brazilian mayor in the public and speaking to him, also directly integrating this. Local and regional governments have implementation potential, they have finance potential. Some of them have, obviously, their budgets and their possibility to integrate state policies. They can be a very good ally of the central government, and this is what we are working about. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla, so much for your lovely speech. And now I give the floor to Farmers Measure Group, Wali Haider, please. The floor is okay. Okay. Please. I'm sorry, but it was in the agenda in the next. Yes, please.
No worries.
Please. 3 minutes, please.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eiji Kawamura. I'm the co-facilitator of the Farmers Major Group, and I echo many of the voices that we've heard today about how important it is for the farmers to have a voice. When I say farmers, though, it's very important to understand that farmers represent an enormously important, obviously, did we all have food today? Did we all eat today or yesterday? An important group on the planet. When I look at the table here, whether it's Indigenous Peoples, a tremendous amount of their population is engaged in agriculture, both smallholder and subsistence farming, as well as farming business. When I look at the children's and youth, of all the farm labor of all the labor that the youth and children have, almost, as I understand, almost 40% of all labor in the world is agricultural labor out of the children and youth. When I look at women, almost 40%, for example, here in Africa, of all the farmers in Africa are women. And globally, it's a high percentage as well. When I look at science and technology, we depend on science-based decision-making. We depend on the new technologies and ancient technologies to be able to produce our crops and to have a more predictable harvest. And when I look at labor unions, for example, and the workforce that is needed to harvest our crops, to process those crops, to get our crops from the farm to the table, there's a partnership that exists there. And I'd like to read just this last passage from our earlier statement a few days ago at the OECPR opening. And it's pretty simple. It's at UNEA7, farmers and their organizations are united in the shared goal of contributing to the fullest potential of achieving the SDGs in collaboration with nation states and other stakeholders. The expanding global agricultural endeavor reflects a renaissance of agricultural knowledge, ancient and new, delivering resilient solutions that align with health, climate, biodiversity, and regeneration. not only regeneration, but also rural development, the development of communities, food security, something important to, of course, all of us on the planet, circularity, the advances where we start to see no more waste, and other converging pathways of transformation. I'd like to read this one small statement that I think is important. The future of humanity, in many ways, will be framed by the future of agriculture. For all those global inhabitants who expect to eat each day, and for the nearly 1 billion global citizens who hope to eat on any given day, the success or failure of agriculture food systems will dictate the difference between dignity and deprivation, and ultimately living or surviving. The farmer major group is not like the other groups in many ways. We depend on all of our major groups to have this success of agriculture allow for the future for humanity, for civilization to thrive or to survive. And this is the kind of time where we have to ask for our space, our ability to give our thoughts, be heard. And out of these many 17 goals, I think there's 7 or 8 of them that specifically will tell you that if agriculture is not successful, we can't accomplish those goals here for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share.
Thank you for the farmer major group, which remind us that we have food system crisis all over the world, and the farmers are in the first line or serving our food. Now I will open the floor for questions. Anyone here had a question? Please raise your hand. We'll start here first, and second here. The microphone, please.
Shouldn't we give
Here.
priority to press questions?
Okay.
Questions from the press first.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we can start here. Yes. Gentleman here. Yes. Yes.
Do you have a moving mic?
Thank you. You wanted question from the press first?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe someone else? No? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay. Our colleague here from the press had a question. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Devin Jaggi from Devex. And my question is, a reaction to a statement that has been issued by the panelists. One of you mentioned that you are pushing a agenda amidst fear that there is the fear that these negotiations could be captured by the corporate world. Could you just maybe give more context about maybe what's happening inside there in terms of fears of corporate capture of the negotiations? Thank you.
Question on the last line, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vivian Chime, Climate Home News. I just want to know, what is the sense that you get from what's happening in the rooms in terms of the negotiations? When Beth the Well was speaking, he said that words on jobs, labor rights are all being taken out. And we've also heard things about, climate-related wordings, climate crisis, and also mining, minerals and metals, some of those issues. Can you speak to what's happening in the rooms? And are we going to have some resolutions come out of this UNEA? Thank you.
Thank you. Any brief questions? So we'll back to our colleague here, and then final colleague here. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Valentin Detling. I'm from Sorbonne University. I'm a scientist. And so my question goes to Mr. Mohamed, specifically in the light of the Plastics Treaty. And as a scientist, I'm a bit worried that in the absence of institutional mechanisms, there is no mean for us to be heard properly. So what can we do as scientists to effectively communicate independent science? Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question is here.
Actually, it's not my question, but I really want to share one aspect is super duper important for all of us.
Please, in 1 minute.
When Maria speaks in the very beginning, what she said is super duper important. So please try to remember what she says. I'm a stage of the great grandfather. And then my great granddaughter, just before I came here, she made a picture of the river. And then the water of the river was black. And so just try to capture that. What is that? Why my great granddaughter wrote the picture of the river is black? What that symbolizes? And then another aspect, we all are here to share our anxiety, our concern, and then our pain within it. And then Dalia in the very beginning mentioned one very important aspect. I hope everybody got that. We are shrinking our place. And who is responsible for that? I feel that we are also responsible to shrinking our own space.
My brother, I'm very happy to hear, but they came to me that we are out of time.
Yeah, so that is also very important. We need to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will take a very quick round of response for these questions, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. On the question of corporate capture, it's of course very difficult. We don't have like a view on how businesses are represented here. I just can give an example from the climate negotiations where you had 1,600 directly linked delegates at the COP in Belém that are linked to fossil fuel interests that are going against the climate treaties. If you compare this then with like the 150 trade union delegates at the climate negotiations, you see the impact. Often it's also linked to the composition of delegations. It's governments that also in their delegations favor corporate interests against broader civil society common interests. And I think that will be reflected in the outcome here. It's also a reply to the question on what will come out here. Due to these pressures on important resolutions that we have to make progress on critical minerals, on chemicals, I think the result will be very bleak and that will be the main message coming out of UNEA. We risk having a very weak reply to the urgencies that the world is facing today. Thank you.
Yeah, just very quickly. So let me answer the first question about corporate also capture. I have a clear point of view here. So the UNEP is a scientific organization. We are working in the area of science policy interface. And we welcome, of course, business to join because important partner. But we don't want the process to be captured by business. For UNEA, for instance, if you go and take a look about various side events, various official side events, a number of official side events are organized or co-organized or moderated by business. What happened also during INC negotiations, where a lot of chemical lobbyists, plastic lobbyists also is a dangerous. We need business, of course. They are important partners, but we need to decide. And also civil society need to be independent. We present the voice of people. And also science is very important. Science should not be under attack. And for a specific INC, I may get my colleague scientists who are among us to answer the question by our colleague on INC. Bethany, if you can kindly just in 30 seconds.
Mohammed, you can make it a side talk after you finish because...
She will answer the question.
Okay, but you are out of time.
She can answer.
Come please here, come please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bethany Carney Almroth. I'm co-coordinator of the Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastics Treaty, and we're a grassroots organization of independent academic scientists supporting delegates in the plastics treaty negotiations. And the question was regarding institutionalization of science, which I think is really essential. The United Nations should be standing on science at the highest levels and throughout all its decision-making processes. There needs to be evidence-based decision-making so we can properly understand the the issues that we face and the solutions that we might put forth. We are working as independent scientists external to that process because there was no mechanism to include the input of science directly into the treaty negotiations. So we're fulfilling a very important void, but we're relying on a grassroots organization and volunteers. So institutionalizing science in the UN is essential. But as we're hearing from other members that have already spoken here, it's also important to safeguard that science against corporate capture, against vested interests, against actors with conflicts of interest that would not seek to protect humans and the environment, but to protect their own interests. And I'd also like to just add as a final note that we understand science very broadly. We're academic scientists, but science is a system of knowledge creation, and that includes the knowledge of indigenous peoples, their knowledge and practices, citizen sciences, children and youth in their educational practices, and that the right to science, the right to benefit from science, to participate in science, and to be protected from science can help us fulfill all of the other human rights and the goals of UNEA and the United Nations. So thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much. And now, last but not least, our colleague Dalia will give 1 minute on behalf on women major groups. So Dalia, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My colleagues from the Women's Major Group were asking what's about the priorities of the group. So I just want to highlight that we are deeply concerned by the gender gaps in the current draft resolutions. There is no any reference about gender balance, gender science, or gender integration. This silence risks a dangerous regression for sure. We are going back 30 years ago, and we call on member states to ensure that the UNEA outcomes protect the rights that we already achieved, to use the language agree in the SDGs, specifically SDG 5, and also advance in ambition towards a truly gender-responsive environmental agenda, because gender equality is integral to an effective environmental governance. We cannot achieve environmental justice if we don't have a gender-responsive environmental governance. At the end, women must be at the core of the decision-making. Only then can the UNEA deliver meaningful, just, and sustainable outcomes. And now I invite you to join to our color campaign. Our message today is collect gender disaggregated data. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dalia, so much. And thank you, everyone who be in the room today. And all the speakers are around. If anyone from the media would like to make interview or have any question, our colleagues are here. I will just invite the panelists now to take just a group photo before we are leaving, please. Thank you.